Hello, colleagues. Today, we're going to talk about Excel text functions and how we can use those with mapping. So we'll talk about two kind of subjects today. I'll overview some things that Excel does. You don't necessarily have to use Excel to get to the second part we'll spend time on, which is mapping. And so today, we're going to talk about some Excel functions. And again, at a high level, it's just an overview. Nobody needs to walk out of here knowing how to do these. And then I'll show, as an example, how to take the H7 network stuff and pull it down into Excel and extract URLs and addresses, and then punch that up to Google Maps.
I wish I'd met you a while ago. I paid my VA to do that.
Oh, yeah. And again, I'm not like, I'm pretty good with Excel, but it's not what I sell for a living. I'm a finance guy who just uses Excel. But I help people. Like if anybody, like if Justin or Susan, you run into trouble, like, dang it, Glenn, my function won't evaluate. Happy to help. I helped Joe a couple of weeks back and he was delighted and it was easy. So that was good. And again, I don't know where everybody's Excel expertise is. I'm just going to show just a few of these, and these are text functions, right? So here in cell B3 is some text, and here are some text functions you can use to extract bits out of that text that's in cell B3. So the left function, as you might guess, pulls text from the left side of the cell. So we say, pull it from cell B3 and pull 6 characters. And so here's the result of that. And you can see up here in the formula bar, here's the actual formula, and here's the result, right? We're just pulling the leftmost 6 characters. And the same is true for right. Here we're using, again, we're going after cell B3, which contains useful text functions. We're just pulling out 9 characters from the right side of it. And you can even pull things right out of the middle of it. So again, just basic ways to extract data. And where this can be useful, if you guys have product lists or customer lists, and you want to start to tease things apart, like first name, last name, street address, and city, these text functions can let you do that. And 2 others that I just want to show you because one of them we'll be using, the find function and the search function works almost identical. The only difference is the search function allows you, it's not dependent on case. And so what this does is say, hey, go in there and search for, in this case, search for the letters text and tell me what characters they start at. So in this case, it's saying, if I go look in cell B3, text begins at character number 8. And there are cases where you might want to do that. So again, don't memorize these, just know that they exist. And the one last one is you can also go in and change the contents of a cell that contains text using this substitute formula. So for example, if I want to find the word text and replace it with the word Excel, I can do that over here. And look, we've changed useful text functions to useful Excel functions. So just some basic background. I actually have a bunch more content. I've done classes back when I was in the corporate world. We're not going to go into those, but these can be super useful as well when you want to control your format of text or numbers, or if you want to start to work with dates, which gets really complex. So we won't spend a ton of time on those. Any questions before I go on? All right. And again, I don't know where you guys sit in terms of, how lots of people are really smart in their functional area. It doesn't mean they spend all day in Excel. So you can make me go faster or slower. So I'm going to go a little bit faster, and I'm going to show you a really quick example. So here, this is just a screenshot of my mind just went blank. If you go to the H7 website and you look at the network, these are it's just a little bit of the list of all the people in the network who've chosen to show themselves in the directory, right? And I did a little search just because I want to constrain it for this example. So what's cool is on many websites, again, depending on the format, I just went to the network and I literally did select all and copied it to the clipboard. So I've got all these contents in the clipboard, and then I went into Excel and just pasted it in. This is just a straight paste. And so this is the result of that. And these are all just text that were in the clipboard that I grabbed off the website. And again, I did a real short example just to illustrate the concept. So think of, hey, often I can get things into Excel right from a website. And this can get really, really useful if you have a a product list, or you're looking at your list of competitors, anything like that, you can often just punch it right into Excel. Okay, so that's the first part. We've captured some information and we pasted it into a list. And so this is a short example. In reality, and we're going to the next sheet, I actually went out and grabbed every single member. So we've got a couple thousand rows here of data that I just pasted in here. So it's just a simple paste that everybody knows how to do. Now it gets a little more exotic, and I show some instructions up here. And again, I don't expect, there won't be a test at the end, but it occurred to me, one fun thing to do is, how could I get the URL of all the members? And so that's my goal. And so the way to do that is, I realized all the URLs end in .com, right? So this one, gochambers.com, that's the thing I want. So I use that search function that we've talked about before, and I wrapped it in some complex stuff, but essentially it says, if this text contains .com, show me the row number. If it doesn't contain .com, show me a hyphen. So all these are getting an error because they don't contain .com. So we're just trying to get a list of all the rows that contain it, because we want to get that later. And I call your attention to our first good hit is on row 57, and the second is on row 65. And we'll see those row numbers are going to appear up here as we do some additional processing. And again, it's not super complex. It just takes a while to goof around with. So we went out, we found all the row numbers that contain .com. Just for giggles, I don't need this, but I went and counted them all just because I was curious how many good URLs we'll have. And the number's 530. So out of the whole member list of people who have .com, there's 530. So over here, then, I want to extract all those URLs and just get it in a nice contiguous list. And so I use a little function called small. Oops, let me go.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep, absolutely.
So obviously there would be .net, .network, whatever,
Yep.
and that's not going to appear here because that's not what you're looking for. But did you, is there a way to set that up that asks for everything except .com? Do the opposite?
Yeah, well, there is, but it wouldn't get at our aim. When I initially did this, you asked the perfect question, Susan, because when I first looked at this, I thought I better look for .net and .edu and all the others. Two things. One, this is not client work. This is just for a demo. So I'm taking a lot of shortcuts. And two, when I looked through the list, virtually all of them were just .com. So I just for a shortcut did .com, but I could easily search for .net, edu, all the others. It'd just be a little bit more complex. And if I wanted to,
well, I guess my question really is, because I know you're doing this for a different reason, but if I were doing something similar, and I also wanted to know quickly, how many were there that were not .com? So it's asking a broader question, a broader search question. If there is a URL and it is not .com, therefore, how many are there? Could I set that up?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It would just be more complex, because the hard part in all of this is figuring out what is a URL, because some of them, here's a perfect example. My first thought was, I'll look for HTTP, but I can't do that because most of you didn't use it. And then I thought, oh, anything that starts with www, but they don't all put that.
Yeah, they don't have a required structure for information.
Exactly, yeah. Which gets us in a little trouble, but it's no big deal. Again, for a demo, I just took a shortcut here, but you're exactly right. In reality, you'd want a much fuller, more thorough view of it. And again, I won't go into deep. Yep, go ahead, Justin.
I just do ComNet, org, and edu because there's so many extensions. I mean, there's digital, there's agency.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, again, I'm just using a simple example. It's not really about finding URLs. It's just to show how you can grab stuff, paste it in Excel, and pull out data. And
I'm just translating what you're doing in a different scenario of going for the actual and then going for the opposite without. Perfect. So if I, in this case, wanted to know how many were there but not .coms, do I have to go search for each? Do I have to put in a search for .net? Do I have to figure out what they all are? Or is there an open-ended way? Because there's too many records. Let's just pretend there's too many records for me to go figure out all the different, like Justin was saying, .edu, dot whatever.
Yep, absolutely. There would
That's
be
a
a couple
whole
of ways to
class.
do it. It would be a lot easier if we just had the list of URLs rather than a list of all this stuff.
Yes.
It's doable. So, okay. So
I had a whole class in college on regular expressions. You
yeah,
just brought back nightmares. They're such a
good.
pain.
Awesome. All right, we gotta move on. A function you guys might not have seen is this thing called small, and I use it a lot of times when I have and essentially it just says, hey, go find me the nth smallest value in a list, and there's also a large. And so in this case, I set it up because I know there's row numbers. So this says, find me the first smallest row number, the second smallest row number, and the third. And we don't need to go into details, but then it allows me to use the index function to actually just go pull each individual row. And so what I end up with is this nice long list, contiguous list of URLs. So again, wanted to just show kind of a way to get data in and pull some URLs out. And now we'll go to a little bit funner example. Again, starting with the same list. This is exactly the same list that we pulled out of the website, but now we want to find where people live. And we're not going to go down to the street level. We're just going to assume that anybody who has a zip code is a good city and state. So we do a similar sort of thing, except, and I'm not going to show you the formula because it's more complex. But we go and look and we say, okay, find all the rows that have numbers. And then any of them that have a 5-digit number, we assume that's a zip code. And so flag that row. Okay, so we go out and find rows that have a 5-digit number. We assume it's a zip code. And again, we use the same kind of small function to pull out addresses. And so now we're starting to see a whole bunch of addresses. And to your point, Susan, this is not client work. Like, I didn't clean it up. I'm not doing a lot of error checking. You can see some of these are junk. In reality, we'd never put this in front of a client. But for
Right,
demo,
yeah,
I just
but
want to show.
I mean, it is applicable in my area. This is fantastic. I
Okay.
had no idea that you could set these kinds of things up. This is really cool.
Yeah, we're not even to the fun stuff yet.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So we're pretty much done with Excel, other than we take that list then. Remember, we just generated a list. I go over here and paste it in as values. And again, there's some junk, but we're not concerned about it. And I put a count here, but again, we don't care. In Excel, there's a thing called Power Maps, and I'm not even going to use it. Instead, I don't know if you guys know this, in Google Maps, you can upload out of a CSV a list of addresses. And so right here, I have a list, and there's a few that are invalid, but a bunch that are good. And I'm going to toggle over to Google Maps right now and show you that same list. And so Google Maps, I just simply uploaded that list of addresses, which was city, state, and zip code. And I also I stole the logo and used that to replace the default Google Maps logo. And here's where it starts to get a little more useful, because say, for example, you're Clay and you're running the H7 network. Generally, I'll admit I don't like maps, but here's a case where it's useful, because if I'm Clay, look how grouped his members are together. It's probably indicative of how this started as an in-person networking group. But also, here's the cool thing. If I'm Clay, I might ask myself, why don't I have more people in like St. Louis? I know there's a ton of people who live there. I should be looking there to try to gain members. So
Right.
It's useful to both know where you're strong, and also in your mind, it raises questions about where you're weak. So it's kind of a fun qualitative way to look at where, in this case, it's just where businesses are in the H7 directory. If I were driving through, let me see if I can get this. I'll try to call this up on my screen while we're talking. Let me see if I have it. Where are my saved? Maps. Come on, H7 network. So, and again, this probably won't zoom in. So on my phone right now is the same map you're seeing on your screen. So think about that for you or for your clients, or maybe people you're sending out on deliveries. If they can have on their phone a map that you can set up for them, that can be pretty dang powerful, not just for avoiding the police, but also doing real work. And I'll show you a couple other map examples. We won't do all the background work, but just to sort of spark thought. So you think, okay, how can this help me? How can this help my client? And I think we got like 5 more minutes. So I'll go a little more briefly. My daughter, I love her, but she's a little bit ditzy and gets lost easily. So she's at college, and I uploaded a list of where her dorm is and where all her college classes are on a map. And there's not that many. But one of the cool things you can do then is, like, if you click on one of these, all of a sudden, look, it can show additional information, not just the address on the map, but what day you go, which is Thursday, and what time you're supposed to be there. So all the places where she has a class, that data is available. And again, a silly, simple example, but I hope it maybe sparks some thought of things that you could do for yourself or for your clients. A more fun example, and this is actually real world, I wanted to map, and nothing in this is confidential. I wanted to map the location of a couple of different kinds of heavy equipment dealers. And again, you'll note that we've got different colors and different icons, which tells us something useful. And so looking at this, you can say, and I won't go into the details other than to say, these orange dealers are heavily concentrated, in the upper Midwest out to the east, whereas the red dealers who are selling, sort of off-road ATVs, they're more broadly spread around the country. And we won't go into commentary, but again, it's useful if you're evaluating your business or an opportunity, or where, say, you're stronger clients and weaker clients. That can be pretty groovy stuff. One more example. So here we're just using colors and icons as sort of a logistical separation. A fun example, and this is a little bit real world, here we're using color to actually indicate some value. So we're grouping these into buckets. In all candor, this is actually my neighborhood. My neighbors were complaining about tax assessments changing. And so I thought it would be fun to map out everybody's address and the percentage by how much their tax assessment had changed. And what's kind of interesting in looking at this is, certain sections of the neighborhood had higher assessments, higher changes than others. But again, think about your clients. Maybe you've got really profitable clients and less profitable clients. If you put that on a map along with, these clients have a 50% margin and these clients have a 20% margin, something might really pop out at you qualitatively in terms of where my really good customers are or where my, less attractive customers are. And again, for you, for your clients, it can be a fun, straightforward. And the beauty of this is everybody has access to Google Maps. So I can give you this link and you can use it. You can create a map and share it just with your client or just with your daughter, as I did. And then the last example. And I did this just to get people to come to class. I took a website that listed where the police had given out tickets over the course of a month in Cary, North Carolina, close to where I worked. And I changed I took the street addresses, I changed the icon to a little officer. Is that glorious or what? And then lastly, you can even do incidence counts. So that gets really handy, right? You're like, my goodness, there are some places you do not, and I should say, I filter these so it's only speeding. It's no improper operation, only speeding tickets in Cary, North Carolina. And this is pretty cool. Like you can zoom in.
That is very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, because it's Google, you can change the layers underneath. So now we're looking at the satellite map rather than the normal street map. Oops, I just lost the overlay. But again, just to me, that's just a really cute, fun example. There's no real world. Well, there maybe is if you're a felon, but it is kind of useful because you can sort of say, hey, here's a really cool way to look at map data. So that's sort of the conclusion. We got like a minute and a half left. So I hope it sparks some ideas, both of things you can do in Excel that you might not have thought of, and maybe some things you can do that apply to your business or to your clients' needs that maybe you hadn't thought of. It's always my goal to shock you with something Excel can do.